Hi everyone, I'm Abigail, this is Megan, and welcome to another Two Kids interview. We are joined by author Dustin Brady and illustrator Jesse Brady. They are best known for the book Trapped in a Video Game and Escape from a Video Game, as well as Layla Nugget Mysteries and Superhero for a Day and World's Worst Time Machine. Thank you for being with us. We really appreciate it.
Thanks, guys. This is super cool. Thanks for having us.
You write children's books. How are your books influenced by your own childhood?
Yeah, they're influenced a lot. So I always write my books to be like my favorite books when I was a kid. So I always try to make a list of all the things that I really liked when I was younger and things that I would find interesting. And things that if I had a time machine, I'd give it to myself. It would be my favorite book ever. So that's kind of where Trapped in a Video Game came from. We had a friend growing up. His name was Anthony Laporta. He lived down the street from us. And Anthony had cable, so Anthony was cool. And one time, I remember, I don't know if you were there, Jesse, when we saw this, or if you remember this, but I remember we were at Anthony's house and he had this show on called Nickelodeon Arcade. And on that show, it was like I don't know, it was like a trivia game or whatever. I don't remember much of that part, but I do remember is at the end of the show, these kids that had won were wearing helmets and elbow pads and knee pads, like something big was going to go down, and these big metal doors open up and smoke pours out. And the kids run through, doors close, and then a screen turns on, and those kids are inside of a video game. And I thought that was super cool. And I thought about going on that show all the time. I thought about going inside of a video game. So that's kind of where I came up with the idea of Trapped in a Video Game. And that's really, again, like to be my favorite book as a kid. And I know Jesse draws a lot of stuff that you like to draw growing up too, right?
Yeah, so I was really influenced by a lot of the old video games that came out way back in the early 90s. This is one of them. One of my favorites was Mega Man. I used to play this and draw all the robots that were in the games. And that was a huge part of me just kind of getting into art, was drawing pictures from the video games I liked. So, yeah.
In your books, your chapters are short, and you have a lot of cliffhangers. Why did you decide that as your style?
Oh, that's a good question. So I like when I read a book, I like being like I like wanting to know what happens next, and I always want that feeling too for kids. And I never want a feeling like that you don't want to turn the page, or like you're sick of reading, you're done with the book. So that's why I do it as short. I really like to write for kids that don't like reading too much, that don't think that they like reading. And a lot of times it's because they haven't found a book that they like, or the books that they are told to read sometimes are maybe like long, they might find them boring. So I want to make it impossible to put down, fast chapters and a lot of cliffhangers. And that's the kind of thing that I like to read. I like to read as a kid. And so that's the types of stories and the types of chapters that I like to write.
Escape from a video game books are chosen are a choose your own adventure style. What made you want to do that?
Well, I liked reading. That was the thing that I liked reading as a kid. And so I liked the old Choose Your Own Adventure books, and being able to pick your path and things like that. And I thought I could do some fun things with it too. So I like video games, and it feels kind of like playing a video game where you get to choose what to do and how you want to do things like that, and those kind of things. So those I wanted to make it feel even more like a video game than the Trapped in a Video Game series. So that's kind of why I did that. Now that series was like a little bit harder for me to write because it was very confusing. I made it a little complicated myself. I made it very complicated for my brother Jesse. And so, like, what are some things that I made you do for that series that were complicated?
Oh man. Well, I remember in the first book, I took a look at all the pictures that you sent me that I was supposed to draw, and I remember seeing one in particular, and it was a bear dressed like George Washington. And man, I just started to panic because I'm not very good at drawing bears, and I've never drawn George Washington before, so that one took me a while to do.
And I made that specifically because I knew it would annoy him. And I just got I got great joy out of putting that. It didn't need to be in there even a little bit, but I just wanted to put that in there. So, anyways, I put a lot of hard things in there for him to draw, things like illusions and a bunch of weird stuff, and he did a great job with that. But that was really hard.
That was one of the cool things about that one was, when I was drawing the pictures of the Trapped in a Video Game series, we started off doing it, and the books were self-published, and so I was kind of just doing it. It was a smaller project, and I was doing it for Dustin. And we didn't know if it was going to be popular or not. So some of the pictures were a little bit quicker. But for the Escape from Moody Game series, we knew right away that it was going to be a little bit of a bigger series. So I got to spend more time on the art. I got to do it in a style that I really like to do. I got to use. You can kind of tell. There's like some ballpoint pen in there that I did some digital color over the top, and I really love working that way. So I got to spend more time on it too, which was really cool. I really enjoyed it.
What was the most creative thing the two of you did together growing up?
Oh, well, that's a good question. I think I have one idea, and then I don't know if you have another idea, Jesse. But I think every year Jesse really like K-Nex. If you don't know what K-Nex are, it's kind of like Legos, but with like sticks and connectors. And I don't know if that's a good way of describing it. But every year we would build a giant K-Nex robot together, and a robot that was a life size as tall as us. And I'm not very good with Kinects, but I was like the muscle, and Jesse was the brains behind the operation. And so every year we would put that together. I know that was a big deal for us.
Yeah, man, we used to do. Dustin used to put on a fake radio show that we used to do on his little recorder, and we would do call in guests, and it would be our other brothers and sisters, and they would come in and do stuff. Dustin used to help me. I used to animate on a program called 3D Movie Maker, and Dustin used to do some of the voices and stuff for that. So it felt like we were always doing something like kind of like we used to, and then we used to make some of our own videos and stuff too. So yeah, a lot of stuff like that. It was really fun.
Yeah, there's some very embarrassing things that happen.
Yeah.
We're on vacation now, and our dad brought an old computer and showed us some of the videos, and it was very embarrassing. So nobody's ever going to see that. But
this was before YouTube came out, so none of it's on the internet. Thank goodness.
Yeah, we weren't professionals like you guys. Pretty bad.
When you illustrated his first book, did you just read the book and do your own thing, or did you discuss what he was looking for?
Yeah, so for the first book, we had a bit of, I read it and I thought it was really cool. And he kind of sent a list of things that he thought would make really good illustrations for the book. And then also made some suggestions, and we kind of like talked together about what we felt like would make a good fit. And for the very first version of the book, there was a little bit less art in it, and we were like, okay, well, what would make the coolest ones? And then when it came out for the publishing company, we did a little bit more art, so we got to come up with more good ideas too, which was good. But we kind of worked together on it, which is pretty unique. Usually, the editor of the book will read through it, and they'll kind of like come up with their ideas too. But we got to work together on it, which was really fun. So yeah.
Yeah, usually I'll send Jesse a big list of everything that could be an illustration. And then he'll pick out ones that he thinks are good or would be fun to write. And then I'll say ones that he must do, like the bear dressed like George Washington. And then we work together to come up with a good list that we both like.
Yeah, on his list, he usually has a little slot that says, as like a little green box for like you like that has to be in the book, and then some of them are like yellow or like this seems like it could be cool. And then I'll add some of my own suggestions to it too, which is always fun. So
Do you two ever sit around together now and think how cool it is to get to work together in this way?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, we live in different parts of the country. So I live in Ohio. Jesse lives in Florida. We're not together usually very much at all. Actually, we're together today because we're on vacation together, which is very fun. So it's a cool way to kind of work together and be together, even though we live far away. It's a fun thing to work on together, and it's the thing that brings us a little bit closer, even though we're far away, which is cool.
yeah, me and Dustin, even though we live far apart, we actually still keep like in touch all the time. We're talking all the time. We get to kind of talk on the phone about the stuff he's working on. I do a lot of animation work, and we talk about the stuff I'm working on too, and then the stuff that we're doing in the future, which is always fun. And we also get to kind of play some video games where we still kind of play Super Smash Brothers over the internet, which is always really fun too. So yeah, we keep in touch and talk a lot.
What is your process when putting a book together? Do you decide the end before the middle, or do you put it together in order?
Yeah, that's a really good question. So usually, I try to think. Well, I start with something that, again, it always starts with something that I would like growing up. And if I wouldn't find it interesting, then I don't start that. But it's an idea usually where it's like this is a cool twist that could happen, or a cool type of video game, or a cool type of story. So it starts with that, and then usually I do come up with the ending pretty quickly, and then like one or two big turning points in the middle. So I'll know that going into it, and then I'll write them chapter by chapter, working towards those points. And sometimes, while I'm working, I'll kind of discover something else that might work a little bit better than what I had thought of before. But that's usually the way it works. So it starts with a big idea, and then the ending, and then some like probably two middle points in between. That's like a big deal that happens, and then go from there. So it's different for every book a little bit, but that's usually the way that I work.
It's getting close to being done. He sends it over to me and a few other people, and we read it. And I give him a bunch of really annoying, little nitpicky feedback of things that I think. And he either throws my suggestions away or he puts them in.
No, he gives really good suggestions. And so, a funny thing about writing a book is that you're working on it for a long time by yourself, usually a couple months. And so you know what you're thinking, but a book isn't for you, it's for other people, right? And so it's really important to give it to a couple other people to see how things come across to people. Because, like in my last book, he read it and he was like, oh, this character's annoying. I'm like, I thought this character was fun. And so I write it, and I'm like, oh yeah, they are a little bit annoying, and I could change a couple little things here or there. So that's a really important part of the process.
Can you tell us about a recent time you were doing something and noticed someone or something and thought, I need to put that in a book?
That's funny. I'm trying to think. So I'll tell you about one. I do like little things here and there with stuff. So for instance, Trapped in a Video Game, the main characters are Jesse and Eric. I grew up playing video games with my brother Jesse, my friend across the street named Eric. But I do so like I put some big things like that in there. But I do a lot of little things too. So like one little thing that in a recent book, in World's Worst Time Machine, there's a kid that comes back from the 1930s. And so the main characters are showing him a phone, and they're talking about Google, and they're very excited about Google. And the character from the past, he asks somewhat, well, ask Google how many birds there are. They're like, what are you talking about? Like, ask Google how many birds are there in the world? And they're like, Google's not going to know that. And they're like, ask it. And I put that in there because my kids they're, when I wrote that book, they were 4 and 5. And they would always ask me, to like how many birds there are in the world, and how many doors are there in the world, and how many everything there are in the world. And they would keep bugging me about it until I asked Google. And so anyways, that's just a silly little thing, but that's a little thing that, I file away in my brain, because sometimes I might use something like that. Sometimes I might not. And Jesse, I'm sure you have stuff like that when you're drawing too, right? Like little things that you notice, or like little stuff that you see in the real world.
Yeah, sometimes it's kind of funny when it comes to with that, like little Easter eggs and stuff. I don't do a lot of it, especially because yeah, maybe sometimes I feel like I'm a little like nervous too, or whatever. I know sometimes and you'll see in like Disney movies and stuff where you'll see like, oh, like little like characters that they like really small put in from other movies and stuff. I probably should do more of it actually. Maybe for the next book that we do, we're going to be working on another book later this year, and maybe for the next book, that's a good idea. Maybe I'll put more Easter eggs in it.
Is there any idea you've had for a book that you really want to do but haven't figured out how to do it yet?
Oh, that's a good idea. Good question. So yeah, so one idea that I've always had that I always want to do is like I like spy stuff. Growing up, I would always ask my parents for like spy gear and listening devices for my birthday and Christmas, and they never bought it for me because they thought I would use it to spy on them, and they were right, I would have. And so I always want to do a spy book, and so specifically a spy book like MacGyver, which is an old TV show where he was kind of like a spy, but he would make his own stuff. Like he'd be trapped in a room, and he would make like I don't know, he'd make a lockpick out of like a piece of tinfoil and I don't know, hairspray or something. I don't know. And he would make like weird stuff with stuff that he found. So I thought it would be fun to do a kid's book like that. Because I always like making stuff like that when I was growing up, or I always like thinking that I would make, because I didn't used to make stuff like that. And so I wanted to so that's kind of a thing that I always want to do. And so I've thought about it, but a hard thing with that is you have to come up with the gadgets for it. And so I need somebody to help me that is really good with that kind of stuff. Like a Mark Rober kind of person. You guys know Mark Rober on YouTube.
Yeah.
Yeah, so like somebody like that who's good with that kind of stuff. And if I could have that, then I would write something like that because I would really love to write something like that one day. Do you have any books you want me to write?
And well, and I just got I was thinking about this with the last question too a little bit, but Dustin was really, really nice. And with Trapped in a Video Game Book 3, he made it all about robots, which is my favorite thing to draw. So he's already kind of given me a lot of chances to draw cool stuff that I like. But if he wants to ask my opinion on all the other cool robot stuff that we could make books on, maybe we could have a talk about it, and we'll
Yeah,
I'll give him some ideas.
maybe we'll do a robot series.
Yeah.
After you finished your first draft, how much do you revise the book?
Yeah, good question. So the first draft is usually like very, very bad. And so I write it fast and I write it bad to try to see, what the story looks like. And so once I finish the whole draft, I kind of understand, okay, this is what the story is. And so then I rewrite everything. Like I don't change stuff on that first draft. I just take it, I look at it, and then I write a better version of those chapters. So they all make sense together. And then I revise it a couple times. I'll go through several different times, going through and tightening things up. I might change a chapter here or there, and make things funnier or shorter, more action packed, and things like that. So usually the whole process is a couple months. And for me, the longest part is that first draft. And sometimes, like especially the first couple chapters, first two, three, four, five chapters, I'll write those a bunch of times until I kind of get the tone of the book, the feel of the book, and then it's easier to finish that first draft. And then rewriting is a little bit more fun for me. I like doing that.
How much of a writer is being observant?
Is being observed? That's a good question. I think probably a lot of it is for me the observation. So I write about video games and I write about like crazy stuff like that. So for me, it's being observant. It's more being observant of like how people act, and pick out like little details and stuff. And so like and so I try to write my books like where the kids talk to each other like real kids. A lot of kids' books are written by grown-ups who have not been kids for a long time. And sometimes I read a kid's book, I'm like, I don't think any kid would ever say that. And so it's kind of paying attention to how kids talk and how and also paying attention to things that I liked growing up because I think a lot of times there are kids' books that are written to impress grown-ups and not to impress kids or not to be fun for kids. And so that's for me, I try to be observant about things that kids really like and things that our kids are into and why things why they would be like that.
What writer and illustrator has had the most influence on you?
Oh, good question. So I'll go first with writers. So I really like Roald Dahl who wrote who wrote Charlie and the Chocolate Factory and then that kind of stuff. So I like those books. I read a lot of sports books on growing up. Matt Christopher was that guy who wrote sports books. I loved those. I liked funny books and adventurous books. And so I think Roald Dahl was like just obviously a classic author, great author. And so I think that he has a big influence. But it was just a combination of all the books that I read. I read a ton of books growing up, and it's all that stuff, the funny and the adventure and things like that. Do you have an illustrator that you?
Yeah, I mean, it's funny. I'm trying to. I feel like I'm going blank a little bit, but I can definitely think of a few. When I was a kid, I didn't think a whole lot about the people behind the art, the people that were creating kind of the cool art that I liked. But now, and I even went to school for art. I obviously pay attention to a lot more to that. And Jake Parker is a guy that makes a lot of art in a way that I always thought was so fun, and he is the guy who does a lot of like the ink and pen work underneath his stuff in like colors and digitally. That's kind of where I got some of my style from. And people like Derek Loffman, these are kind of people you can kind of find on Instagram. I feel like he has a really cool style that I've always really admired and things like that. when I was in middle school, one of my favorite games was called Metroid Prime. And I remember when I would play that game, they had like an art gallery in that game, and I would spend hours just going through that art gallery over and over and over again. And I would like copy some of the art from in the art gallery in the game and things like that. And so a lot of some of the video games that have influenced me a lot when it comes to those things, and lots of artists who have worked on those are, like the Metroid games, the Mega Man games. And when I got a little bit older, some of the Mass Effect games and stuff like that. A lot of science fiction, a lot of robots, space, and stuff like that have always really, really, kind of stuck out to me and kind of been a big inspiration. I feel like it's really important to find, even if it's not exactly related to exactly what you're working on all the time, things that inspire you are important, because you pick up a lot of things that you can use in other areas, even if it's not, a robot book or even if it's not a space book. You just things that get you excited are important because it gets you motivated to work on the next project. And yeah, I found there's lots of stuff all through like that inspire me. Yeah.
I think one thing that inspired us both was growing up. We had me and Jesse and our other brother Scott. We had a bathroom upstairs, and in the bathroom we had a bunch of collections of comic strips. And so I really liked those because they were funny. He really liked them too. One was Bill Watterson and Calvin and Hobbes. It was very funny. So and we liked Garfield. We liked a lot of those old comic strips. And so those bathroom books were a big influence on us for sure.
I had some teachers in college that were a big influence on me too. A big one, his name is Brian Jekyll, and maybe you haven't heard of him, but he was really really talented, and I got to learn from him. He got to teach me, and he inspired me a lot. And he didn't like drawing robots at all. It was not his thing, but he still gave me so much. I had so much to learn from him, and yeah, it was really good.
What did your mom say when you first told her I want to be a children's author and illustrator?
She said, "You're going to do great." She's very supportive, and she's great. So both of us, this isn't like the first thing that we've done. Like we both had regular jobs and things like that, and we were writing for a long time. And my mom would always say, I know you're going to write a book, and I can't wait for you to write a kid's book." And she was always very encouraging with that. So yeah, she loved the books. She got our books immediately. She's very encouraging with that kind of stuff.
Yeah, and it's the same thing for me, but it was expressed a little bit differently. I went through art school, and my parents were very supportive of it. They were like, yeah, I never even really thought about doing anything else. They knew I really really loved it, and they were very supportive. And when I got out of college, my very first job was scanning in 1,300 photographs for Joanne Fabrics for their marketing department of homemade prom dresses, and it was the best use of my artistic talent. But from there, I got to do more design work for them, and then I got a job doing animation work, and then I was doing animation and illustration for a company. And then eventually Dustin reached out and said, "Hey, we should do a kids book," and I thought that was a great idea. But right after college, when I was looking for a job as an artist, my dad was very supportive, but he was very very he was on me every single day. He's like, "Hey, what have you done today to get a job doing your art? What have you done today doing?" And he pushed me really hard to get a job because he knew he didn't want to see me waste my potential, and so he pushed me really hard to get a job too. But they were both very supportive. Yeah.
What advice do you have for young people who want to illustrate or write?
Yeah, so the one thing that I always say is to write something and to finish it. A lot of people get really excited about a story idea they have or whatever, and they write it and they get to one, two, three chapters, and then it kind of fizzles out because that's when it gets a little bit hard. And so I always say to finish it, to write the whole thing, to finish it, because the important thing is A, that you prove to yourself that you can do it, and you did it, and it's something you have that you can be proud of. But B, and more importantly, is that something that once it's finished, you can give it to someone else and they can enjoy it. And I think that's the best part about creating something is to be able to share it with somebody else and see them smile, see it light up, maybe change their mind about something or improve their life in some way. But like you can do that as a kid. If you finish a book, you can give it to someone else and they can read it and they can enjoy it, and it's something that you have that you can be proud of. So my number one piece of advice is just to finish it, to do your best. and you get through that middle part that's a little bit hard and finish it because then you have something that's finished and that's a really cool thing to have.
Yeah, and for me, I would say is to practice, 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 and to really always push forward and to and to just doing artwork. If you're interested in artwork, I think I can remember when I was in high school, I was like the art kid, and I was so good at art, and everybody knew that I was in art class, and it was one of those things. And then when I got to college. I realized that right away that I was not the most talented art kid and I had to work really hard to get good at it. And I remember that very first year of art school when I was in college, a lot of people decided not to do art at that point because it's really hard. It takes a lot of hard work if you want to do it for a living. And so I was like, but man, I love to do it so much. And there was never a point where I like ever even thought about quitting because I love to do artwork and so just to kind of keep doing it, to not get discouraged if you see people around you who you feel like are oh well this person's better than me. It doesn't matter. Just keep making art. And there are all kinds of people who are making amazing book art, and I'm so it's so amazing that I get to be one of them. But just to keep doing it and to keep working really hard at it is I think good advice I think too. So.
Is there any chance Trapped in a Video Game will be made into a movie or TV series?
Yeah, it's funny. Yes, it's something that we're working on, and I don't think I can say too much right now, but I would say stay tuned because it could be something that could happen. And so all that stuff takes a really long time, and nothing's for sure. But we are working on it, and hopefully it's something that can happen. I think that'd be super cool. Will you guys watch if we make it? Yeah, cool.
Yeah, of
That'd be
course.
awesome. Okay,
Of
well,
course.
I see you guys do a lot of reviews too, so I hope you review it and you give it two thumbs up, okay?
Give it a fair review.
No, unfair. Two thumbs up.
Have you ever thought about selling a cameo in one of your books for charity?
That's cool. Like name a character after somebody. Yeah, something like that. That's funny. No, I haven't done that. I get a lot of kids that ask me if they can be in the book, and I always say, well, I can't make any promises, but I try to name my characters cool names, and so if you have a cool name, there might be a character that's named after you. So, but that would be good if the movie blows up and it's huge. Maybe I'll do that and do it for charity. That sounds fun.
Do you have any other projects in the works that you can tell us about?
Okay, yeah. And so I just finished World's Worst Time Machine 2. That comes out next year. I'm very excited about that. And I have a new series I'm working on with Jesse. It's called Adventures in a Video Game. So we have Trapped in a Video Game, Escape from a Video Game, and the third one is Adventures in a Video Game. And that's like different characters in different video games, and it's a different story each time. So it's not a continuing story, but just a lot of fun things, kind of like Goosebumps, where everything is a scary story, but they're different characters. It's the same thing. So everything is a video game story, different characters. And so I have a couple ideas. I'm trying to do two of them for next year. I'm trying to get two books out for next year. We'll see if it works out. And I'm going to send it to Jesse. Jesse's going to be giving me some great illustrations probably in the fall, and we're probably going to be behind because I'm going to be behind, and then he's going to be working up late at night, and it'll be stressful, but it'll turn out cool.
Finally, it's time for our Turbo 10. 10 rapid fire questions. After each question, we'd like each of you to answer. Are you ready?
Yes.
Number 1, what is your favorite phrase to use?
Go. I wasn't ready for Turbo.
My favorite phrase to use. Let's see. Oh man, I've got some, but yeah, man, this is a lot of pressure.
It's because I said so when my kids ask why.
Let's see. Oh man, I can't think of anything.
Okay.
This is the worst Turbo thing. You just make something up, Jesse. He likes to say pickles a lot.
Number 2. Number 2. What is one subject you would love to learn more about?
Ooh, history, because I'm writing about history and I don't know too much about it.
For me, there is a program called Unreal Engine that would be really cool to learn for some of my animation work.
Number 3, what is your go-to snack food?
Um, Cashews,
Oh man,
Sour Patch Kids, and cashews and Sour Patch Kids is a good mixture of salty and sweet.
the donuts from Walmart are underrated. They're cheap and they're really, really yummy, and so they're really good. They're addicting.
4, what was your favorite book growing up?
Charlie and the Chocolate Factory.
I think for me, it was a book called The Curse of Toko Ray, in a book series called The Cooper Kids. It's good.
5, if you could teleport somewhere right now, where would you go?
Ooh, Australia.
Oh man, that's tough. There are some places out west that I think would be really, really cool to visit. So maybe one of those like Colorado and Rocky Mountain National Park are always really cool. So,
6, if you could have any superpower, what would it be?
I would like to fly.
I would like to be able to divide myself into multiple people so I could do more things at once.
7, what was your favorite cartoon as a kid?
Ooh, Bugs Bunny, probably.
Oh man, that's a hard one. My favorite cartoon growing up as a kid. Uh, I feel like I never got to watch Inspector Gadget that much because it came on during times when we were pretty busy. But I really, really loved every time I got the chance to watch that one.
8, what is your favorite rainy day activity?
My favorite rainy day activity. We just had a rainy day today, and we just had we have in this house. They're all under 6, and our favorite rainy kids all day. That's pretty fun. It's pretty fun to wrangle all the cousins.
Right now, my favorite rainy day activity is playing the new Zelda game, Tears of the Kingdom. Is really fun. I really, really like it. So I like doing that.
9, if you could have any 3 dinner guests, who would they be?
3 dinner
Dinner
guests.
guests.
Well, you two obviously, and Jesse.
Yeah, let's see. Man, honestly, I feel like I've got it this week. I don't get to see my family as much as I like, and we're all really close. And so I've had all the dinner guests that I would pick
Oh,
in this house all
that's
week. So
nice.
yeah.
10, what's the best piece of advice you were ever given?
Best piece of advice I was ever given. That's the thing you do when you're trying to think, and you just repeat the person's. Gives you a couple extra seconds
I have an
to
answer.
think. All right, go, Jesse.
So I had a teacher in high school who told me that I should be more teachable and that I should work on my attitude. And that ended up being one of the best pieces of advice. When I first started working at my design job, right out of school, there were a lot of people around me who were kind of also young and also kind of just getting into work. And they acted kind of like they knew what they were doing all the time. And they didn't want to listen to other people telling them how to do things. But I really tried to listen and ask good questions and have a good attitude. And it ended up being one of the things that really helped me stick out, because it's like, oh man, people want to be around people. People want to teach people who have a good attitude, who are teachable. And even now, man, I haven't arrived, I still need to learn so much. And so even though I'm more experienced, I still need to be teachable and have a good attitude and be humble. And that was really good.
Yeah, that was good. And a good piece of advice is somebody asks you a question you don't know, have Jesse go first, even though it's a turbo round, because that gives you a little bit more time because he gives long answers. For me, it's the piece of advice is understanding that your time and your talents, the things that you've been given and you've been entrusted with, and you only have so many of them, right? And so you need to. It's something that you need to take all your time, every minute, every day, and the talents that you've been given to do your best with them and to make a difference and invest them in the right things. And that's something that is always really important for me to go back to and think about. What am I doing with my time? What am I doing with my talents? That's making a difference.
You both did great. Thank you so much for doing that.
Oh,
Yeah.
you guys did great. You guys are awesome.
Yeah.
Don't no, back to you. You guys did great. This was amazing. See, we did that radio show growing up and our questions were terrible.
Way worse
You
than
guys
that.
had so many questions and they were all good. And when I thought you were done, you had 10 more
Yeah.
and they were great too. And you guys did good. So nice job by you guys. I could tell you guys are experienced interviews. You guys are going to go far. This is awesome. Thank you so much for having us.